Hey guys, in this video, I'm going to be teaching you how to mark your sheet music. And even if you don't have any in-person auditions right now, this is so vital to know when you do have in-person auditions, because if you don't mark your sheet music correctly, it could end up causing your pianist to mess up, which will hurt your audition and not make you look as good as if you spent a little bit more time and marked it correctly. So a book I recommend getting is The Accompanists Guide to the Perfect Audition. Now, you don't need to read this book because I'm going to be going over pretty much everything you need, but it is a very, very, very helpful book if you wanted to read something. Now, at the beginning of the song, before the measure that you want to start at, you're going to want to put a bracket around it, and then you're going to want to put the words start in all capitals and highlight it because you want it to be very easily seen. And if possible, try and make that the first thing at the first page. If you have music before that you're not doing because your cut is later in the song, then just don't include those pages. Then for your intro, there are several different types. Now, the most common one is to use just the piano part before you start singing. Now, I recommend cutting this if possible and making it about 3 or 4 measures tops. If you can help it, you don't want your intro to be like 8 measures because a lot of the time you have a time constraint or a measure constraint, and so using it on stuff you're not even singing in is not the best idea. But with that kind of an intro, you're just going to want to write intro in big letters at the first measure where it starts. Now, the next type of intro is a vamp, which is something that can repeat infinitely. So for this, you have to write how many times you want the vamp to be played. So above it, you're going to want to write vamp, and then next to it, you're going to put the ×1 or ×2 or times however many times you're going to repeat it. Another option is to have just a chord played for you, or just simply the starting note. I definitely recommend a chord over a note. And if you do choose a chord, make sure to play it or have somebody else play it and be able to find your note from that, because you don't want to just blindly go into your audition and realize you don't know your starting note from the chord. Whichever you choose, you're going to want to write the word in all caps. And for a chord, you're going to want to write the chord into your music. And usually this chord is the tonic chord, which is just the chord from whatever key it's in. And if you don't know what key it's in, you can just look at how many sharps it has and how many flats it has. Look that up on the internet and then look up the tonic chord and then write that into your music. And if it's hard to find the first note with the tonic chord, you can just make a chord that has the starting note as the bottom of the chord, which you can also look up how to do or ask somebody who knows about that kind of thing. Something else you want to include is where you start singing, and you can write singing on the measure that you start singing, so it's clear to the pianist. All of this is just to make everything as clear as possible to the pianist, so writing that can be really helpful. Now, if you have 2 different cuts of music within the same sheet music, say you have a 32 bar cut and a 16 bar cut, you're going to want to write 16 bar cut at the start of the 16 bar cut and then 32 at the beginning of the 32 bar cut, just so it's very clear. Next, you're gonna wanna mark important things throughout the music. So if there's a repeat in the song and you're not doing the repeat, bold that line so that there isn't the 2 dots so that they don't accidentally repeat it. Cross out the set of lyrics that you're not doing and highlight the set of lyrics that you are doing. And if you have the choice of repeating a verse or moving on to something else, definitely move on to something else and don't do the repeat, because it's more interesting to not do the same thing again. Other important things include time signature changes, tempo changes, or fermatas, or important dynamics or key changes. Also highlight the repeat if something repeats or if there's a coda. And if you have a key change that starts at the beginning of a page, you want to write the page before that there's going to be a key change so they don't just turn the page and they're like, oh crap. Then at the very end of your music, at the end of the last measure, you're going to want to put a bracket like before and then write end in all caps and highlight it. So you want to do this with everything that's in your audition book, and the music you have in your audition book should only be stuff that you have gone over, you know all the notes, you have worked on your acting for it, because that could be something that you're asked to do. So you don't want to have every song you've ever sung or ever been given by your vocal coach, because if they ask you to do a song, if they go through your book and they see, oh, you have this song, and you're like, well, I've never even worked on that, that's gonna suck. It's gonna make you look bad. So make sure you only keep the stuff that you know in your book and do this for all of those songs. Some important things to remember: don't make your sheet music single-sided. Make sure it's double-sided, and make sure the music you bring is the key you want to sing it in, because it is very, very difficult to transpose it on the spot. And if they have to do that, they're probably gonna mess up and it won't make your audition very great. Another thing, if you have a chunk of measures that you just skip over, you can put paper over that, tape it over, then you could scan the page and print that out so that you don't have paper on it. You don't have to do that. You can wipe them out. It makes it less distracting. You can also put an X over it, but I think covering it up completely is the best option. So your songbook should be organized into at least 4 sections. So contemporary ballad, contemporary up-tempo, golden age ballad, and golden age up-tempo. And I do have a video on that, so definitely check out that if you want to learn more about songbook organization. But what I do recommend is taking the songs that you are intending to sing at that audition and putting them at the front of your book and not keeping them in the section. It's gonna make it so much easier. Put whichever song you're singing first, and then the other song right after that. Trust me, it makes it much easier. They don't have to flip through your book and find it. Now, if you're not starting from the beginning of the song, make sure to write the song title at the top of the page so it's clear what they're playing. So something you wanna do is practice exactly what you're going to say to the pianist before you go into the room. That way you can do it quickly because you don't want to take way too much time, but also you want to make sure you know what you're saying. You want to make sure you cover all your bases, so once you get in the room, everything runs smoothly. So I'm going to give you a few examples with music that I have and just kind of tell you what I would say. Now, when you meet your pianist, there's no need to shake their hand. Just say, "Hi, nice to meet you. Thank you for playing." Show them your music right away. You know, you don't have to exchange pleasantries for too long. So put your book on their stand, open it up to your first song and say, "I'm going to be singing Anything Goes." And you don't need to say the composer, you don't need to say what show it's from, just say whatever song it is, and then start giving your spiel about the things that they need to know in order to play your song. So all the things that I've talked about marking, all those things you've marked are things you want to talk about. So I'm going to give a few examples. I sang Anything Goes for my college audition. I did a 32 bar cut and a 16 bar cut. I'm going to go over my 16 bar cut because I think there are things that I could have done better. So I would say, "Hello, thank you for playing." I would open it up and go to the music and say, "All right, so my song is starting here," and I would point to where I'm starting, and I would say, "Can you please play the starting note? There's no intro." And what I did is I placed a fermata on my starting note and then gave a tempo for the rest. So I don't think this is a really good idea because 2 times it kind of changed the tempo to something I did not want because I was holding out a note and then they didn't exactly know what tempo to do anymore. I don't know why, I don't think that's a good idea. So yeah, I would say this is my starting note and I'm going to sing all the way to the end. I'm not doing any repeats. I like to run my finger over everything so they can see it. And I crossed out the first ending because I'm doing the second ending. And I would say I'm going to do the second ending and I'm going to go up on the last note. And then I would say, and then I'm going to end right here and point to where I'm going to end. Then after you show them both your songs, they're going to ask you your tempo. Now you don't have to just give them your tempo right away. Think about it in your head, and then give them your tempo. Because if you just give them your tempo right away, you're probably gonna give it way too fast or way too slow. So think about it for a second, and then give them your tempo, and tap on your heart. Don't snap, don't clap, it's rude. Do it over your heart, which also helps to ground you. And sing your song quietly. It doesn't have to be in the right key. It doesn't matter, you can talk, sing it. This is not your audition, so don't sing it loud. It's not going to affect if you get in, if you sound good or not for this part. So don't try to show off here. You're just giving the tempo. And at home, at least once or twice, I would say you should practice giving your tempo, practice giving your spiel. And it might seem boring, it might seem stupid, but tempo is one of the things that can really make or break your song, because if they go really slow or really fast, it really changes the song. All right, so the next example I'm going to go over is for the song I Don't Know How to Love Him from Jesus Christ Superstar. So I would say I'm going to start from this measure right here, and if you could just play the piano part, I'm not going to start singing until I don't know how to take this. And I'm going to keep going to the end of the page and continue on. And once we get to the 2 different verses, I'm not going to be singing the first verse. I'm going to be singing the second verse, which is highlighted. And then I'm going to do the first ending. And then I would say, and then I'm going to end right here. And then you give your tempo. So it's really not that hard. You just want to make sure that you cover everything. Now, another thing you're going to want to set up with your pianist is when they're going to start playing. So there are many different things you can do, and it's just about finding what you think is the best thing to do. So for one, you could put your head down and tell them, once I raise my head up, then you can start playing. So here are the pros and cons of that. Now, putting your head down, don't put your head down just for the sake of putting it down. If you're going to be putting your head down, you want to actually be getting into your moment, thinking about some situation that triggers the emotion that you need for this scene. Think about that, think about where you are, think about all of that, and then lift your head up. Don't just put your head down. It might feel a little bit awkward to put your head down, but it can be very powerful if you do it correctly. Take your time. This is your moment. Don't just put your head down for the sake of it. Another thing you can do is tell your pianist, when I look at you and then look back, that's when you can start. The pros and cons of this is you need to be looking at your other, and if you look at the pianist and look back, you're kind of taking yourself out of that scene. So that's kind of the negative of that. I mean, the pro is it's very clear because they're looking at you. Another thing you could say is I'm going to take a deep breath in, and after I take my breath, then you can start. The only thing with this is it might not be clear if you've taken the breath unless it's big enough. So there's that. You can also just do nothing and have them just kind of start once you finish talking. Or what you could do, what I think is the best thing to do, is slate before each of your pieces. So you can say, I'm gonna slate before each of my pieces, and then a few seconds after I finish slating, you can start playing. That way you can take a breath after you slate and get into your moment and know that they're going to play. You have to be ready for them to play so they don't catch you off guard. I think that one's really great because it keeps you calm in between your pieces. You can even do this for your monologues because a lot of times people just kind of rush into their next piece and they don't take a breath or anything. So just like taking a second to recollect yourself and get into the next scene can be really helpful for you. I'm sure there are tons of other ways that you can cue the pianist. You just have to experiment, ask around, and figure out what you think is the best for you, and tell your pianist what you're going to do so that you both know what's going to happen. Now, quickly, I wanted to talk about what happens if they play it too fast or too slow. Now, if this happens, there are 2 things you can do. One, you can either go with it, which is what you're most likely going to have to do, and if this happens, you're going to have to quickly adjust. It's hard. You can practice this. You can get the audio speed changer app and practice slowing it down and speeding up so that you're ready for anything. And what you need to think about before or in the moment, if you're just kind of caught off guard because you didn't practice for this, think quickly, how does this change my character? How does this change what's going on if there's a speed change? Because it's probably going to change it. Think about how that changes and just let it happen. Don't make it so that they have to catch up to you because that's probably not gonna happen. So what you wanna do is slow down, try and get as close to them as possible, and they'll probably go a little bit. I would say you should go more than halfway to meet them. Think about how that affects your character and just go with it. Don't show on your face, just go with it. Now, if it is too slow, like crazy slow or crazy fast, that it's just like, it's too much, just say, I'm so sorry, I gave the wrong tempo. Even if you did give the right tempo and it was their fault, you should always take the blame. It makes you look good. It definitely makes you look bad if you blame somebody else for it. And quickly, I'm just gonna touch on the slate in case you don't know how to slate. So you're gonna say hello and then your name, and then you're gonna say my first song is, say your song, say the composer, say the musical. You can just say the musical or just say the composer, or you can say both, but at least say one of them. And if you're slating both at the same time, then you're going to say, and my second song is blank, composer and or the musical. And if you're breaking up and slating between your pieces, then after you can just say, next I'll be singing this, or my second song is this, just like before. So then for a monologue, I say I am performing a monologue from title of the show, and then the author. You don't have to say who the character is. You can. but you don't have to. I didn't. So for example, I would say, hello, my name is Madison Holla, and I'll be singing Anything Goes from Anything Goes. You wanna practice this so you don't stumble over it. That is literally the thing that people stumble over the most. Go figure, it's because people don't practice it. So practice that when you're practicing your song at home, and try and avoid making it super robotic, because that's just, nobody wants to see a super robotic intro. And then for my monologue, I would say I'll be performing a monologue from The 5th of July by Lanford Wilson. Simple, short, doesn't have to be anything more than that. All right guys, that is everything that I'm going over for your sheet music, for talking to the pianist. I hope this helps. I hope your auditions go very well, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you found it helpful, like the video. It would mean the world if you subscribed, and let me know literally any of your questions, and I will do my best to answer them. And have a wonderful day. Bye.